The Sunday Mail in Queensland. A really interesting story on the front page of the Sunday Mail that relates, Daisy, to two of Queensland's firebrand politicians. I talk, of course, of Pauline Hanson and Bob Katter. And this story, this exclusive by Renee Valaris, it says that Queensland firebrands Pauline Hanson and Bob Katter are joining forces in a bid to increase their federal political muscle, steal votes from the major parties and help decide who takes power in next year's state election. The duo is burying their differences with an alliance that begins with a drought tour and will include cooperation in Canberra. Now, we know that neither Pauline Hanson nor Bob Katter, neither of these two people are shrinking violets. They're certainly people who are pretty fiery customers, and they've had a few clashes before. Daisy, do you think that this is a marriage that can last, or are we on a fast track to disaster here between Pauline Hanson and Bob Katter?
Oh, gosh, well, this will certainly be an interesting one. I mean, if these two could actually bury the hatchet and make this alliance work, then they could, needless to say, be an incredibly powerful force. They have similar interests, similar concerns, certainly similar constituents will vote for them. So I commend them for actually sitting down and going, OK, this could be a very good idea here. We could have a lot of clout. We could steal votes from the major parties. And more to the point, we could help people who need help and who feel that their voices are not represented in the two major parties. But as you mentioned, and as I first thought when I saw this story, these two are not they are not shrinking violets. Sorry, they are very big personalities. They are very, very driven and ambitious. So can this marriage of politics last? Look, I'm not sure, but for their sake, I actually do hope it can, because I think it's a very good idea if these two can make it work.
Mike, they are two people who do share common interests on many policies, on many policy issues. But is there room for two personalities this big in the one room? Do you think that they can make this new relationship last and have a real effect ahead of the Queensland state election?
It's very interesting, isn't it? Because I think the timing is just right for them to do this if they can make a success of it. I think there's tremendous opportunity for them. But both of them have played very heavily, particularly Pauline, on the idea that they're not quote-unquote politicians. Now they're doing the political thing, which is getting together because of a common interest, even though they don't seem to get on well together. So can they maintain the we're not really politicians, we're here for the folks, we're different from everybody else, despite the fact that we're doing the political thing and forming a merger so we can get more power?
It's going to be interesting to see how this plays out. Daisy, we're only 12 months away from an election there in Queensland. What are going to be the big issues as we head to that poll next year?
I think you can't look past Adani, and I think you can't look past jobs. I think those two things are probably going to be the biggest issues. Obviously, Anastasia Palaszczuk came out of the woodwork straight after the election and said, oh, well, I guess we need to get Adani sorted now, which caused many people to raise their eyebrows and roll their eyes that, you know, suddenly in some sort of opportunistic way, after digging her heels in, she was suddenly supporting Adani because the Liberal Party had won the election. I mean, there's obviously a bit of cynicism at the moment about the Queensland Labor government, certainly with Jackie Trad and all the issues that have surrounded her. Look, it's going to be an interesting election. It will be my first Queensland election that I have voted in, being a reasonably new resident of the state, and I just hope we get the best outcome.
Mike, it's interesting what Daisy talks about there in that Adani issue. We did see Anastasia Palaszczuk after the federal election really get on board with Adani. Do you think that the voters are going to support the way that the Labor Party in Queensland has treated that Adani issue, or do you think they're in for a bit of pain at the ballot box when Queenslanders go to the polls next year?
Well, look, I'm viewing it from a distance, but it seems to me that Queensland electors have every right to be suspicious on a couple of calls. I mean, yes, the Adani thing, that's very Diamond Joe Quimby, isn't it? I can flip-flop on any issue. And then as for some of the other things that have occurred, that their corruption commission didn't find actionable as such, but then said they needed more power so that presumably if that happens in the future, they would actually be able to do something. I don't think they're going to fade away for Queensland electors. I think it's going to be pretty tough for Anastasia.